Sexual assault remains a significant issue in the military, according to a new report by members of a defense task force. The co-chairs of the Defense Task Force on Sexual Assault presented their findings to the House Military Personnel Subcommittee. The report says while assault numbers have not significantly increased, reporting problems make it difficult to track the number of assaults that occur across the services. And they say while efforts geared toward encouraging victims to step forward are working, more work needs to be done in the area of prevention, and more specifically, prevention training.
Improving awareness should be one of the key aspects of training, addressing the frequency of incidents, addressing victim and perpetrator risk factors from age, alcohol, location, acquaintance versus stranger, garrison versus deployed, and risky behavior in general.
The report also calls upon DoD leadership to play a key role in sexual assault prevention. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs says he believes the military's don't ask, don't tell policy should be repealed. Admiral Mike Mullen made his remarks Tuesday before members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, where he and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates testified. Staff Sergeant Brian Buckwalter has more.
It is my personal belief that allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly would be the right thing to do. No matter how I look at this issue, I cannot escape being troubled by the fact that we have in place a policy which forces young men and women to lie about who they are in order to defend their fellow citizens.
Admiral Mullen says for him it's about integrity for those who serve and as an institution. Secretary Gage called for a review panel, giving it a year to examine the impact a repeal would have on unit cohesion, morale, retention, and recruitment. But he says, with the exception of combatant commanders, he doesn't want deployed troops to be questioned.
The one thing that I have asked is that as we go through this process, we try not to disrupt or impact the deployed forces, and particularly those in Afghanistan and Iraq. They have enough on their minds.
The panel, headed up by DoD General Counsel Jay Johnson and General Carter Ham, the Army's commander in Europe, will initially have 45 days to determine if there is any wiggle room in the existing law so that it might be applied in a fairer manner. Then panel members are to reach out to the force, seeking their honest opinions and observations. They'll ascertain which DoD regulations and policies will require change, looking at everything from benefits and base housing to fraternization and misconduct. And the panel must develop ways to mitigate any negative impacts of a possible repeal.
Part of what we need to do is address a number of assertions that have been made for which we have no basis in fact.
Though all say they know one thing to be true: American troops are already serving side by side with members of the gay community, some known, some not.
I have served with homosexuals since 1968. Everybody in the military has. And devaluing them in that regard just is inconsistent with us as an institution.
The review panel is to report back to the Secretary the end of this year, and Congress will decide whether or not to repeal the controversial policy. Marine Staff Sergeant Brian Buckwalter, Pentagon Channel News.
The hearing and the review comes on the heels of last week's State of the Union address when President Barack Obama said he would repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The policy was enacted under the administration of President Bill Clinton. Coming up on Around the Services, Family Ties. We'll introduce you to one airman who's keeping a legacy alive. But first, two become one. The base realignment and closure law affects two popular military installations. We'll show you which ones ahead. Stick around, Sergeant Ted McDonald is back with more.